just hours after the Supreme Court allowed Texas to enforce SB 4, this was a 6-3 decision, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ordered a pause with a 2-1 decision, and they were hearing arguments earlier today. So
how many times did it go back and forth? It was like 4 or 5?
I guess because the day before the Supreme Court ruled, they granted an extension on pausing the law. And then the day after that, the Supreme Court was like, just kidding, never mind. We're going to allow the law to continue. And then the day after, no, the same day, right? Yes, the same day. I know. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals was like, no, we're going to pause it. And so everyone's like, wait, what? I don't even understand what just happened.
I went to bed last night and I was reading Ken Paxton's tweet where he was like, we won! Yeah. And I was like, huzzah! Yeah. So I'm laying in bed. My wife's like, stop, go to bed. And then I wake up and then I saw, just kidding.
Yeah.
It's back off again.
Yeah.
It's such a dog and pony show. And that's really is all it is.
Well, it is. Now, look, there's no way that this doesn't get kicked up to the Supreme Court for a final decision eventually. That's obviously where this goes, because whatever the ruling is on the final ruling of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, whoever is the loser on that end is just going to keep suing, right?
Well, yeah, but for sure. But can I pose the question, even if we do win, as in Texas wins, what do we win exactly?
Right.
So just like you mentioned the border documentary, just like with the seizure of Shelby Park, which is a complete and total photo op, and that's all it is. What do we win here? So if the Texas National Guard can apprehend, which is the same, power given to the Border Patrol, like someone literally has to do something about it once they cross the border. Where do they go? Like will we have the same camps, only controlled by the National Guard, and they'll wait there, and they'll still get paroled, and nothing really will change, right?
Right.
And even if you can deport, where are you going to deport them to?
Yeah, Mexico already said that they're not going to take back anyone who's ordered to leave. So they're like, we don't want them. Yeah. Which is very convenient of them that they allow all these people to cross through Mexico and come into the United States, and then they're like, we don't want anything to do with these people. Yeah, that's convenient.
The vast majority of people coming across now are not from Mexico.
Right.
They're from elsewhere,
right.
All over the world, really. And if there's one thing that I've learned within the past few weeks is everything that Texas says they're doing, I think not all of it, but a vast majority of it is just for the headlines and for the appearance. So anytime you hear this stuff, really think about it. Like, what will change on this, if anything? Mm-hmm. I don't think much, really.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that it will be, I think that it's important to put the feds on notice on if you are not going to follow through with your responsibility of defending and protecting our sovereign borders, or at least they're supposed to be, then do the states have the power to do something like this, right? Like, do the states have if the federal government completely abdicates and neglects its responsibility, does the state have the right to then go, okay, well, if you're not going to do it, then we are, because it's the law, right? Like, I think that that's the precedent that I'm looking forward to being set.
But look, I mean, we're at a point now where if you cannot defend if you cannot defend the borders of your country, and I'm just thinking about the arguments, like, what argument is there?
It's dangerous.
I believe turning up there and going, well, this is the border, and we would like to stop people coming over it. And the government arguing, well, no.
That's too mean and dangerous for the illegals.
In theory, all Texas is asking for or saying is, hey, we'll help you.
Yeah.
Like Biden administration, federal government, we'll help you out.
Right.
And the government's saying, no, don't help us because we're not going to do anything about it.
We don't want to do it.
And here's the thing, if you are sitting in a car that is involved in a bank robbery, you are charged as an accessory to the crime, right? Like, if you're driving it, like, you might not go in and rob the bank, but you're an accessory to the crime. What is Mexico? If they're allowing people to come through, they're an accessory to the crime. I'm sorry, Mexico.
I'm not sorry, Mexico.
No, I'm not sorry, actually. What am I saying? No, but it's, and again, I sit there. This is the one thing that does really, really piss me off, because
there's way more things that piss you off.
There's a lot of things. All right. But no, I am an absolute one issue voter. Like, this drives me bonkers because I did this the right way. Yeah. Like, it was such a wonderful moment for me to even be able to come into the country. I valued it. I treasured it. When I took the first step to get my green card. It was an amazing thing, and I had one of the most amazing experiences, even though it was under COVID, when I got my citizenship. And I just see people just say, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm going to come in. And we've said this 1,000 times on this show and the other show. What does it mean when your first act in this country is a crime?
Breaking the law.
And that's what it is. And stop saying migrants. Stop letting them say, and this drives me mad, and we've said this before again, is the left dominates the words, right? They dominate the language.
You mean the newcomers?
The newcomers, the immigrants. I'm like, hang on a minute. Don't be like lumping me in with these people, right?
Yeah.
It's just infuriating to me.
I think conservative media really needs to step up, and I'll put our own network on blast for this. I think that all conservative media needs to not just cheer on some of these wins, because they are wins, and Kim Paxton's doing a great job in stacking those wins up. Mm-hmm. But conservative media needs to ask very specific questions on these things. After what I saw at the border, I'm like, okay, enough. We have to be harder on some of these officials. For instance, I'd love to ask Kim Paxton very specifically, what does that mean you can detain and arrest at the border? Well, it means we can grab them and put them in our own camps. Okay, so does that mean you will defy parole? The parole that the Biden administration has ramped up, just letting all these immigrants out. Will you not do that? Ask that question.
Right.
Because if you're not prepared to take that next step and then defy that parole order and just immediately put them on a Texas jet with a big Texas flag and send them back to these other countries, it means nothing. Well, nothing will change.
You know what? There's an additional step to that, though, as well, because Ken specifically has been undermined every step of the way that he's tried to do these things for this state, right? So the question is, okay, what is the process? How are you going to execute that process? And who's stopping it? Who are the people that are undermining you to get this done, right? And because then, as a state, not to go on about Texas, but everyone needs to do this in every single state around the country, is hold the people that we're voting in accountable for what they're doing. Right, because they're just as complicit. Right, we speak over and over about the Uniparty. That the Texas Republicans. I mean, I'll let you name the name of the one person who is. I have no idea how that person is still in a job. I don't know whether there's a runoff. I don't get it.
Just one?
Well, there's one specifically, right? But we need to. It's not just media outlets. It's actually the pressure should come from Americans. And we've said this again, over and over again, that people need to step up and get involved, because none of this, that they wouldn't get away with it if there was a groundswell of opinion. Like if 30,000 people decided they were going to go down to Eagle Pass and make a stand and say, listen, not just the truckers, right, but actual Texans, and say, what is going on here?
I want to add one more piece of this puzzle too, because when we're talking about all of the we're talking about the damage done to America, to Texans, and all of that. And I agree with all of that, and I talk about it all the time. But I want to focus on one other aspect of this, which is the human rights abuses being committed by these cartels, who are, of course, being, the Biden administration might as well be getting a commission check in the mail from these cartels and these coyotes every single month, because they are enabling.
Are you sure they're not?
Well, they might be. It might be 10% for the big guy on that area too. Yeah. So I want to play. I watched this. This is heartbreaking. This Mexican boy who was lost because the smugglers who he paid to bring him to America just completely abandoned him because he couldn't keep up. Watch.
We came across this young man who was abandoned all alone in an area where no one would want to be left, in this rough, remote terrain of Terrell County. The sheriff there telling me that they have recovered 37 bodies over the last 3 years of migrants trying to cross into the U.S.
Legal immigrants.
Brutal, unforgiving terrain in a remote area of the Texas border. That's where we found 18-year-old Hector, a Mexican national trying to escape the cartel. Hector tells a gut-wrenching story of getting abandoned by the group he was traveling with. He's clearly distraught.
Says, yes, please, I want to go home to my mother. He left me in those hills. I had to cross from there to there, and I went to the ranch looking for help. Yes, where's the group? They left. They abandoned me. I couldn't keep walking. So you're here alone?
Hector
Yes.
was spotted when he signaled for help on a game camera in Terrell County, presenting his Mexican passport, prompting Sheriff Thaddeus Cleveland to jump into action.
That is a consequence, a direct consequence of the Biden regime's open border policy. That's what's happening. You've got, and I mean, we've seen so much more than that, right? We've seen young children, toddlers, like tossed over walls and left. I mean, it's human rights atrocities. And it's so funny because do you remember when they were screaming about Donald Trump has people in cages? Donald Trump has people in cages. I don't know. That seems more humane than allowing this culture where all of these cartels and coyotes are coming over here, making money off of people and then leaving them for dead. I don't know. Am I crazy?
No. You're not crazy. And I just to go back to who's making money off of all this, because you're exactly right. None of that happens without the cartels' expressed approval.
Right.
None of it. And they need them for this entire thing to work. But who in the Mexican government's involved in that? Who in the international community is involved in that? Because you can go, there was a report out a few months ago where Doctors Without Borders, was it the Red Cross? I can't remember. It was a bunch of different international organizations were passing out maps to these illegals that were coming all the way through, north through South America, maps with little icons that would show, oh, you can stay here, you can get medical attention here, you can jump on a bus or train here. It showed trains, so, like when they jump on top of the roofs of the trains, and detailed maps from international organizations. These international organizations know for a fact that the cartels control the southern border.
Right.
So they know that they're delivering them to the cartels, who then pay money. Who's cut in on this?
Right.
I would not be surprised if you find out that not only on that side, there's like Mexican government officials that are being cut in, international organizations that are getting cut in on this, but also on this side of the border as well. Mm-hmm. Are some of these governors of some of these states or mayors of towns? Who the heck knows? Because they're the ones that are saying, oh, we're going to be a sanctuary. What are you getting off of all of this?
Yeah.
Well, America used to say that it was great, and it used to put the flag down and say, listen, these are these ideas and these ideals that we hold to. And what the left has gradually done is pulled it down and down and down and down. So now there's no moral authority in the USA anymore. You can't really turn around and say in any way, shape. I mean, I guess you could argue it, but really you can't, like you used to, is say, listen, we have a certain moral standing in the world, and we are not going to accept this kind of behavior. We're not going to accept this kind of brutality. We're not going to accept this kind of dysfunction. We can't say that anymore. So what you're seeing is that the whole standards that we used to abide by are dropping. They're getting lower and lower and lower and lower. And when that happens, you have this brutality, this dysfunction is allowed to flourish because no one can point the finger and say that's a bad thing, right? So they can't point the finger. They're not, if you look, the left is not pointing the finger and saying that the cartels are bad. They're not saying it. They're not saying that the trafficking is bad, really. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at what they said about Sound of Freedom, that it was a right-wing conspiracy. Hang on a second. This is about the trafficking of children. Yeah. Well, but if they are dysfunctional, how can they point to another dysfunction? Because it'll be pointed straight back at them. So we need to get back to being a God-fearing nation again and standing up for things that are right. And we're not doing that right now. And that's why we're in such a bad situation.
If you like this clip and you want to see the full episode, click here. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, come on, you know you do. Click here.